Hey there, how's it going? I'm Anyssa, and today we're going to be talking about some really creepy, scary stories, some creepypasta, dare I say. So, I got my good friend Tegan here with me, of course.
Here again. Hello.
Welcome. There's something super special about this episode. Tegan, do you know what it is? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Do you remember what it is?
I don't know if I remember. I don't know.
It's March 26th, and that's pretty cool. It's a good date. Okay, it's my birthday. Yay! Happy birthday, me!
Yay!
Woo! So if you're watching this like on the day it came out, March 26th, it's my birthday. Recording this a few days before, but yeah, I'm super excited. So I had to pick, the perfect topic, and so I decided we were going to talk about creepy stuff. I chose creepypasta. I'm pretty sure all of my stories are technically on the No Sleep subreddit, and that works.
So we're doing like one of mine is a creepypasta. I don't know about the other one, but one of them at least.
What's the difference nowadays? I don't know. But yeah, cool. So I think I'm gonna start. I have most of mine are more like people psychological stuff.
Gotcha.
So it may not seem like it's going somewhere, and then it's gonna go and go somewhere. So stick in with me. All right. So this one's titled "Both of my parents were surgeons, and I used to talk to furniture."
That's a sentence. That's a sentence.
I grew up in an area where properties were so large and the families are so wealthy that they build mansions and walls enclosing themselves in their own private properties, never interacting with their neighbors unless by some strange coincidence. I was homeschooled until the age of 7, which is where this story ends. But first, it begins at age 4, when I can first remember what my childhood was like. As a young boy, I thought that staying isolated in your family's property was what all little boys did. Whenever my parents would go out, I'd ask to join. But they'd shake their heads explaining that only adults left home, and that only in very, very dire emergencies. Aside from this, I never wanted for toys or activities and developed what my parents described as a wild imagination. I began to create relationships with our household furniture, spending days conversing with them and naming each and every one of them. My parents seemed to indulge in my imagination more and more, increasing the amount of furniture in my house dramatically. My father had always considered himself somewhat of a handyman, and often explained to me his love for constructing things and how he had handcrafted certain pieces. And so 3 years ensued of deep emotional relationships I developed with furniture in my home. Arnold was the soft sofa in the living room that seemed to move up and down as I reclined on him, reading books. Sophia was my bed that shifted ever so slightly, rocking me back and forth as I fall asleep. Sometimes I can even hear her humming softly. When I laid my head on the table in my room, Claudio, I could hear his palpitations in rhythm to my heartbeat. I constantly spoke with Theodore, a rather small chair that was very responsive to me, making humming sounds and strange vibrations, even when unprompted. But, above all, I loved Gladius, a large sofa, the largest, softest couch in the home, the one who seemed to share my breath. All the furniture felt so soft, so warm, and so alive to me. It's strange how fast things can change. It was Monday, my 7th birthday, and my parents were in their workshop constructing a new piece of furniture as my present. A woman had gotten lost driving through the town, and although our gates were sealed shut, she had managed to push her way through. She knocked on the door lightly, and I jumped up. Having never heard someone approach the house before, when I opened the door, her expression changed in horror. She sniffed the air and gagged. Then she picked me up and began to run. Tomorrow I turn 27, and I've been rolling over my mind if I should sit in the gallery of my parents as they're executed. The headlines had labeled them worse than Carl Brandt. I don't know who that is. I'm so sorry. Having reconfigured 167 people by my 7th birthday. They were never branded murderers because no one had died. But it was much worse than that. The 167 people that make 71 pieces of furniture. That's 664 limbs, reassembled in formations no mind should conjure. Sometimes people think I'm a Buddhist. There's no furniture in my apartment. Both my parents were surgeons, and I used to talk to furniture.
Oh my god.
I thought that one was crazy. I was like, where is this going? And then I was like, oh, the furniture of people.
Dude.
The furniture of people.
Imagine the woman just walking into the house as a child, and then you just see reconfigured people just everywhere.
I very much picture this house like a Sims house. You know, like very like wide open rooms and like way too big and like with weird walls around it and then just people furniture. And I want to know, like, did they look like people? Were they reupholstered? You know, what's going on?
Yeah. That's
So,
because he said they were like soft.
yeah. Yeah. Someone asks, so do you have to feed the furniture? They're like, oh, maybe. So not necessarily as creepy as it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
plot twist.
Just like I don't know. I kind of like the stories like that because that's the kind of stories I have that are just kind of like unsettling.
Yeah.
Not exactly outright like terrifying.
Yeah.
If it's outright terrifying, I'm gonna have to watch some Barbie movies when I get home.
Yeah, you know, it's okay. We'll go home and play Split Fiction.
Okay, so this one's kind of long. It's on r/no sleep, and it's called Uncle Gary's Family Fun Zone. This one's kind of like a guy interviewing two people, but like it's like at different times. But it's basically just like an interview thing. So I'm gonna try and kind of differentiate my voice because it's a back and forth kind of interview.
Okay.
But it probably won't be great. I didn't know Will could draw. I remember thinking as my friend's hand quickly moved across the page, and when I looked closely at Will's impromptu sketch, and I immediately regretted it. I tried to unsee it. I shifted my attention to other things around me, anything at all that wasn't the ink on the page. The blur of Will's hand, the beads of sweat gathering at his temples, the gentle autumn breeze creeping through the crack of the window. Don't look at the page. Just don't look at it. But I knew I had to, so I looked. And it was worse than I expected. Much worse. Will had sketched a near-carbon copy of those wartime Uncle Sam posters, except not quite. The suit was there, bow tie, check, but no Uncle Sam head. The Uncle Sam body had the head of a goat. The animal flashed a welcoming, toothy smile. A hoof pointed at me, nearly coming out of the page. But it didn't want me to join the U.S. Army, no. This goat-headed creature had something else in mind. I want your kids. Under the declaration in slightly smaller letters, it read, At Uncle Gary's Family Fun Zone, opening soon. I'd never heard of Uncle Gary's Family Fun Zone before yesterday. The place I quickly learned played a host to a significant moment in Will's childhood. And although I'd been good friends with him for 15 years, he'd never told me the story, but today he'd open up. I wasn't trying to reopen any wounds from his past. I just wanted him to tell me a story. Any story. I'd been listening to a lot of NPR, which is like public radio, basically. Right. And being inspired by their storytelling segments and slices of American life. I purchased some professional recording equipment and set up a makeshift studio in my house. My goal was to capture and archive stories of my friends, relatives, and really anyone who had something to say. Call it boredom. I was a widower with a 7-year-old son. Besides doting on my kid, I needed something productive to fill the time. My recording area was cozy. Just a couple microphones, a small table, a few chairs.
Relatable.
I know, right? Who is this guy? Hose you me?
He's watching us.
I'd sit a few feet from my interview subjects. The intimacy would induce real honesty and emotion. That was the plan. It worked a little too well. I never thought my storytelling experiments would go so wrong so quickly. It wasn't just Will's story and his sketch of the Uncle Sam human goat hybrid thing. Before I'd interviewed Will, I heard another version of Will's events from the other person involved in the Family Fun Zone incident. Will's wife and my good friend Carolyn. Carolyn and I had dated a while in college. A stretch of time we now joke about occurred in a parallel universe, we'd say. We were never supposed to happen, we decided. Instead, there was some sort of cosmic hiccup, and different universes intersected for the briefest of times. Our relationship was over before it started. Caroline then began dating Will. The two lived happily ever after, and the three of us have been close ever since. Caroline and Will's history predated our college existence. The two went up to high school together, but I never knew exactly what they experienced as classmates and friends. Not until I set up my little recording studio. I interviewed Carolyn first, and Will's interview occurred the following day. Both of my friends requested I not tell the other about the contents of their respective interviews. I'm certainly not planning on it, but both interviews were long and free-ranging. I'll just transcribe them here. Excerpt of Caroline's interview. Caroline? I don't really know. We're gonna go. I'll just pick one and stick with it. So how did you and Will meet? We went to the same schools growing up, but we weren't friends or anything like that. You know how you kind of know everyone you go to school with, but most people are just on the periphery. I'm pretty sure it's like peripheral, but That was Will. Always there, but not really. We ran with different circles. You can't pinpoint the moment you actually met for the first time? I can't remember the first meaningful interaction we had. Though I was just writing for a school paper, and God, I can't believe I actually wrote for a school paper because I was terrible, just horrible writer. And I was researching a story. It was a legend in our town, something all the kids talked about, but no one could prove. Did you have any of those? I think so. I'd have to think about it, but I'm sure I had some. Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. One of those, oh, my brother's friend's mechanic had this experience type thing. It was pretty famous growing up where we did. Kind of a spook story to scare kids from staying out late at night or running and doing those irresponsible things. It was a place called Uncle Gary's Family Fun Zone. Gosh, I haven't heard about that place in years. Uncle Gary's Family Fun Zone? Just saying it out loud sounds so weird, right? Just completely and utterly made up. When we got older, most of us just thought it was made up because it was a silly, stupid legend. So, of course, it would have a ridiculous name. What was the legend? It'd been so long, but from what I remember, it was a children's play zone place that existed in the late 70s or early 80s. No one could pinpoint it, but the story was this guy, Gary or something, almost like he owned the place.
Who'd have thunk?
But everyone called him Uncle Gary, inherited a piece of land out in the woods from his grandfather. He took all his money and turned it into a fun zone. Slides, games, trampolines, kind of like an indoor rec type place. But all barnyard themed. So the place looked like a red and white barn with a silo, but the insides was all kid stuff. He built this out in the woods. That's what everybody said, but the messed up part was what happened there. Apparently, like 30-some years ago, a kid slid down the slide and just vanished into the ball pit. Like there was no trace of him. He was only 4, maybe 5. I can't remember for sure. Anyway, they emptied the ball pit and everything. The only thing at the bottom was a trap door and a crawl space that led nowhere. It was just dead end. No one knew why it was there, but yeah, the kid just vanished. The town freaked, Gary split, and the place shut down. And that really happened. Every kid in town believed it. The story was that it was some sort of hellhole that sucked down small children, that it needed to be fed. Like it swallowed up that kid, and if anyone went near the place, it'd swallow you up too. Was it bullshit? You said you were writing a story about it for the newspaper, and you met Will. Yeah, so I decided to write a story about Uncle Gary's, and Will heard about it. He joined the newspaper club because he wanted to help. I think he just wanted to spend time with me. A little narcissistic there.
Yeah. It's obviously about me.
But he helped me with my research. We talked to people, looked at old newspapers, spent a long time in those creepy library stacks. That's where Will held my hand for the first time. God, we were so young. Did you find anything? Nothing. No record of the place. We even talked to the police department. They had nothing. Did they know what you were talking about? Oh, yeah. Everyone had heard of Uncle Gary's, and everyone was really nice about helping us, but nothing factual existed. My article was going terribly. It was all dead ends. Was that what you expected? I don't know what I expected. I thought it'd be a cool article. So I had a lot of interviews of people telling the stories. I was going to write this oral history type of article, but then, God, I hadn't thought about this in years. Will came to me. He said he knew where the fun zone was, and he said he had directions to a place that didn't exist. Will said that it did. It was out in the woods, down some roads that weren't on maps. How'd he get those directions? It'd been so long, I honestly can't remember. Did they fall out of some ancient book at the library? I think that's what happened, but he had them. Did you go there? I never told anyone this. No one. I can't believe I'm telling you this now. Will and I haven't talked about it since it happened. Wow. Really? It's okay. We don't have to keep going. No, it's fine. It's just... Seriously, Carolyn, I'm not trying to psychoanalyze you or ruin your marriage by making you dredge up terrible memories. That's not what I'm trying to do. It's okay. I want you to know it wasn't supposed to be there. It just wasn't. What happened was Will was going to go there first to make sure it was safe. I'd meet him there later on, and I did. I followed the directions perfectly down all those forgotten dirt roads that used to be real roads. Right turn at the rock the size of a Volkswagen, go three-quarters of a mile, and take a left at a pine tree with a downed limb. Stuff like that. All landmark stuff. But the directions were perfect. I drove what felt like forever down this bumpy road, and it ended. Nowhere else to go. And there was Will standing there at the side of the road next to his car, hands jammed in his pockets. He had this look in his eyes. He just looked different. It's almost like after that night, there were two Wills. The first Will, who had worked on this story, helped me research, and held my hand in the library. He was so sweet, just shy, tender, innocent. But after that night, he'd changed forever. Like he never looked at me the same way again. And we'd been married now for 9 years together, and together since junior year of college. So 13 years? And he'd never looked at me that way, the way he looked at me in the basement of that library back in high school. It was the night at the fun zone that changed him. I know it. It was that night. Carolyn, have you ever thought about us? Like if right now she's like hitting on him. It's kind of weird. It goes off into this little side thing. She's like, have you ever heard about us? Or thought about us? Like if our parallel universe that had fully intersected forever was the real one? And we were together. I haven't. Look, I think we should stop recording. He's trying to like back out. He's like, whoa. And then she's like, please don't. It's just me and Will. 9 years, no kids, no babies. He just doesn't look at me. And he's like, he's supposed to. He's supposed to give me a baby. And we're supposed to be living this love story. But something went wrong. And it all started that night. What happened on that night? I pulled off to the side of the dirt road that no one had probably taken in decades. And Will just seemed different. I asked him if he'd found it. He said it was there. Uncle Gary's family fun zone was there. Will grabbed 2 flashlights from his car. Maybe they were Home Depot flashlights.
Here they're Home Depot flashlights. Mm-hmm.
We followed a path through some brush. Then it kind of emerged before us, nestled in the trees. The barn, the silo, everything. It was so strange. It was almost like it materialized, if that makes sense. It was dark, so yeah, I know what you mean. And then there was this picket fence around the place, and each board was either painted yellow, green, or light purple. And it held up better than it should have. The paint should have been completely peeled off, or maybe the whole thing should have fallen down, but it was in good shape. Did you go inside? I mean, we came all that way, right? The main entrance was this huge wooden double door, probably 15 feet high, and above it was the sign, Uncle Gary's Family Fun Zone, and a picture of a cartoon farmer with a piece of straw hanging out his mouth. And the sign had been vandalized. Someone had spray painted X's over the farmer's eyes, and nearly every letter had been scribbled out. Everything except for fun, but the F was turned into an R, and an exclamation point was added. So it just read, run. We weren't the first people that had been there, and I remember thinking, I don't know if that makes me feel better or worse. Who went in first? Will did. He pushed open the door, and it creaked the whole time. I was nervous someone would hear it, but we were out in the middle of the woods, you know? So it was kind of dumb. Will raised his flashlight and jumped backwards into me. We were staring at this giant goat statue made out of fiberglass. He had to have been like 7 feet tall. It was standing on its hind legs and its other front legs reaching out, like it was hugging something invisible. I guess it was a photo op, you know? Stand inside of it, take a picture, and they were everywhere. What was everywhere? Fiberglass farm animals, goats, sheep, cows, pigs, all standing on 2 legs, all their front legs extended. They were all scattered around the whole place, almost like soldiers keeping watch. Most of them were covered in some black soot substance. I ran my hand across one of the sheep. The soot was probably like a half-inch thick. I remember it trickling through my fingers. It was wet, almost gooey. I honestly don't know what it was. So what else was inside? Slides. They were everywhere. Slides, jungle gyms, swing bridges, a basketball court. We crept around for I don't know how long, just believing it wasn't real. It was just so dark and silent. We got so turned around many times. It was like we were going deeper and deeper, and I don't know if this makes sense, but it felt like we were walking longer than we should have. Like the place was bigger on the inside than it looked on the outside. And at one point, I remember looking back at Will and saying, "It's like a maze in here." And right at the moment, we almost ran into a sign that said, "Uncle Gary's Amazing Cornstalk Maze." We were right at the entrance to a maze, but it wasn't made out of corn. The walls were wooden with corn stalks painted on them, and there was no way we were going in there, not a chance. Did you find the ball pit? We did. It was at the bottom of the tallest and widest slide in the whole place, right in the center of the barn. And the pit was just massive. It had to have been like 40 feet wide, maybe 6 feet deep, but it was empty. No plastic balls, just a giant barren pit. And there was a ladder going down into it. From there, we saw the hatch. Will looked at me and kind of just shrugged. He said, "This is why we're here, right?" We climbed down and we walked towards the hatch. Our feet echoed. It was a different kind of echo. Like it died quickly, almost too quickly, like something was sucking away the noise. I can't believe you guys did this. I guess it was the adrenaline. Our flashlights were directly on the hatch, and it had one of those round steel rings, no lock. We stared at it a while without saying anything, almost like we were expecting it to start pulsating or to pop open. But we wanted to know what was inside. Had to know, so we decided to do it together. We grabbed the steel ring and with both hands and pulled it up. I thought I'd be greeted by the bones of the dead kid, but there was only the smell that rushed us. It was cold and crisp, and with a tiny whiff of sulfur. Will hopped right in, but I reluctantly followed. The stories were all true. It was a crawl space to nowhere. We crouched down and crawled about 20 feet. The tunnel just ended.
I ain't getting in no creepy crawl space.
Nothing but smooth steel wall. Smooth brain, no lumps, no bumps. They are just going for it. And then we heard noises from above.
Yeah, like we heard earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
I know. I was reading it. I was reading this while that happened. Yes, I was at that part.
Right as we were setting up, unfortunately, nothing had recorded. It sounded like something, I don't know, like fell maybe? I heard it more because you had headphones on. Mm-hmm. I didn't. But it felt like something fell and like hit the ground and like rolled / was drugged across. It felt it in the floorboards. We're the only persons in this building. It was terrifying.
Yeah, I was rereading this and I was like reading over this part and it happened at the exact same time.
No
which
way.
is why I started like crying basically.
No, I was tearing up without reading that. Oh my gosh. Cool. Anyways.
Sorry to break the immersion. Anyway. And then we heard the noises from above. Holy God. Something had jumped into the pit because the first thing we heard was this single reverberating thud. It was unmistakable. Then the footsteps directly above us, walking towards the hatch. We killed our flashlights and pressed our backs into the steel. Will put his arm around me and covered my mouth, and I did the same to him. My legs started trembling and bouncing on the floor, and Will grabbed it, steadying it. We listened as the footsteps got closer to the hatch, but they just stopped. I wanted to look down the tunnel. I did, but I didn't want to see whatever was there. I didn't want to see the whites of my eyes because I was terrified it would give me away. But I felt its presence across the tunnel. I knew it was there. I felt it leaning down and staring at us. I'm sure about that. I even heard it breathing softly. Did he say anything? No, it just watched us for a while. I never opened my eyes, and the next thing I remember is the hatch slamming shut, and both Will and I jumping and hitting our heads on the crawlspace ceiling. We stayed there silent for it had just probably been an hour. We eventually worked up the courage to crawl to the other end in the pitch black. And I was praying, just praying, that whatever this thing or person was, it wasn't in the crawl space with us. We were too scared to even turn our flashlights on. Every inch we crawled, I thought, this is it. I'm going to reach out and feel something warm and snarling. But we made it to the end, and we slowly raised the hatch. Thank God it hadn't locked us inside. We climbed out, and we ran. Just ran. I don't remember my legs moving beneath me. I remember it being, I was in the crawl space, and now I'm outside. Now I'm at my car. Just like that, we were safe. Did you tell anybody about this? Did you write the article? Will followed me to my home. We promised never to talk about it again, and we were done. No article, no nothing. Why not? I think we stumbled across something we were never meant to see, and something knew we were there. I think it let us off with a warning. We didn't want to make it mad. We were given a second chance. You keep calling it it. Is there a reason for that? Just a hunch. Just the sounds it made when it walked, the vibe it gave off. It didn't feel human. I honestly can't believe you haven't talked about that since high school. You and Will haven't brought it up? Not once? I love Will, but it changed him. It changed me. How long has it been since Grace died? 15 months? And you two didn't have secrets or things you didn't talk about? We talked about everything, at least for my part. I'm sure she wasn't keeping anything from me. What's that like? To have a marriage like that and a child to love? I think what we had was rare, and Tyler is my world. He's my everything. I turned off the recording. Caroline was traveling down a road that I had no interest in going. She left shortly after, making me promise not to share anything with Will. Gave her my word. At one point, I dropped the digital recording of her interview in the trash icon, hovering over the empty button for a few seconds, but I couldn't do it. And then Will came by, so then we'll be in Will's perspective. Sorry, this is long.
It's okay.
He looked me sharply in my eyes and said, "Have you ever heard of Uncle Gary's Family Fun Zone?" And Will's like the husband, so he starts with, "I lied, and I told him I hadn't." Because they promised not to tell each other about any of, she was like, "Don't tell Will I said any of this."
Yeah.
So
when the interview asked,
yeah,
he pretended to be stupid.
Yeah, basically.
All right, got it.
He grabbed a sheet of paper from my desk and sketched out the Uncle Sam type flyer for that cursed children's fun zone. And this is where the interview excerpt kicks in.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Did you hear like music? I thought it was just a car driving by, and then it just like kept going. And then I was like,
Well, anyway.
Anyways, it's not scary wearing headphones. I can't tell what makes it better or worse.
Yeah.
I've already been like getting goosebumps from your story, and then whatever. So
it's a little nerve wracking. Like nothing really like happens so far, but like it's kind of nerve wracking.
It's just it's very good storytelling.
I like the
interview
to
my speaking
part. Sorry.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Anyway. Continuing on, Will is starting on the interview. It's not the question asker person. I was sitting in class. I think it was Spanish, and I look over, and there's this beautiful girl in the row next to me, and she's furiously scribbling in her notebook, and she's drawing this. Will holds up.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
You would draw that.
Only in
she's just
split fiction.
You look over and she's just like,
how funny it'd be to catch somebody just like pretending to be all cute, scribbling away, and then you just look and it's just a penis. My bad. Okay, go ahead.
You're good. And she's drawing this, and Will holds up the sheet of paper. So the sheet of paper I described that in the beginning, where it was like he didn't want to look at it and it was creepy. That's what she was drawing.
Ooh, okay.
This interview kind of flips what she just said on its head. This is where I get creeped out.
Okay.
I can't explain it, but I was drawn to it. There was something about it. So I stopped her after class and asked her, "What's Uncle Gary's Family Fun Zone?" Because I'd never heard of the damn place. Was it a place in town? That's the thing. It apparently was some kids' play area type place in the 1970s. And some little kid drowned in a ball pit, if that makes sense. Caroline told me the whole story, saying it was the most famous legend in our town, and she was writing a newspaper story about it, but I'd never heard of it. I asked all my friends, my parents, teachers, and I always got the same response. What are you talking about? And that made me more curious. Is this beautiful girl putting me on? Or does she have a wild imagination? Because according to Carolyn, the legend was as famous as Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster or whatever. Are you sure you weren't asking the right people? Google it. You'll find absolutely zero about Uncle Gary's family fun zone. And if it has a legend and it's that famous, wouldn't it have some sort of presence on the internet nowadays? Anything at all? Zero results. That's pretty incredible. And back then, it wasn't just people I knew. I joined the newspaper club, mainly out of this incredible fascination to find out more about this girl and why she was obsessed with this legend that didn't exist. And we interviewed dozens of people for the stories. Historians, cops, librarians. We got a lot of strange looks. No one had ever heard of Uncle Gary's, which only made me more curious. Did you guys get together? I know you started dating in college. I didn't know you had history. Not really. I mean, almost. Carolyn had this pull on me that was hard to explain. We were spending a lot of time together, and she was gorgeous and funny and motivated. Just motivated to find more about this Uncle Gary's place, and I liked it. Even when I thought she was maybe a little crazy, I liked it. Boy, you thought she was crazy and you were going? Okay, whatever.
What a high school. I guess this was
That's
college.
such a apparently. It's kind of confusing a little bit. They started dating in college, but it was I think this kind of the first meeting-ish took place in like high school.
Right. Okay.
So it was real. Here's the thing. We had no clues or leads. I was just hoping she'd give up, drop the whole thing and we can start dating and doing normal teenage things. But one night, and shit, I haven't thought about this in forever. I was up late cramming for a test and I see this bundled up old guy walking down my street, just kind of putzing along. And this guy looks like he's like 200 years old. Stops at the end of my driveway, reaches into his overcoat and pulls something out and slips it into my mailbox. And I was like, what the hell? I stand up and he snaps his head and looks right at me. It was just freaky. I dive down on the floor and don't have the balls to look outside for another 10 minutes. By that point, he was gone. What did he put in the mailbox? I found out in the morning it was directions. Scribbled on a napkin, weird ass directions, like drive down this dirt road and look for the tallest trees and turn right type directions. I immediately knew it had something to do with Uncle Gary's. I just knew it. Did you tell Caroline? Here's the thing. This is going to sound terrible, and I can't believe I'm telling someone, but here's what happened. This Uncle Gary's thing had been going on for weeks, and I know I said I liked the fact that Carolyn was obsessive over it.
Did you hear the car honk?
Yeah.
It sounded really weird on the headphones.
It did. It was like really...
It was very subtle.
It was like... Anyway, I know I said I liked the fact that Carolyn was obsessive over it, but things turned weird quick. She kept coming over to my house to hang out, but she didn't seem too interested in me. She was more interested in my brother, who was 2 at the time. And God, it was hard to explain. It wasn't a normal, like, I like playing with your brother thing. It was creepy.
What? Okay. All right. Didn't know we were going here.
Mm-hmm. The way she looked at him, it was almost like she needed him for something. Like she was going to snatch him. Like we'd come home one day and David would be gone. And it would be because Carolyn took him. Wow, I don't expect you to understand any of this. It doesn't make any sense, but I felt it. I'm telling you, it was real. In my heart, I had this hideous feeling. It was all related to this Uncle Gary's family fun zone obsession. I thought Carolyn was looking for this place and was going to offer up my brother as some form of sacrifice. Just saying it sounds so messed up. You probably think I'm yanking your chain. I mean, this is my wife we're talking about here. This is Carolyn. It's fine. You don't sound like you're lying. I wouldn't. Not about this. Did you tell anybody? No, they'd probably think I was the crazy one. The whole thing was insane beyond belief. I had to know what she was up to, so here's what I did. I told Carolyn I'd found directions to Uncle Gary's. I told her they'd been folded up in some library book about the town's history or something. I gave her directions to the place, and I told her I'd check it out first. But here's the thing. I gave her the wrong directions.
Oh my god, okay.
What do you mean? I made them up. Wrote down a bunch of gibberish. They led miles outside of town in the opposite direction, and then I followed my directions, the ones the old man left me, and they led me right to it. It was real. This Uncle Gary's place. It was real. It made no sense. And then Carolyn showed up. With the wrong directions. I'll never forget it. Seeing her car pull up. She should have been 40 miles away. But here she was. And that's when I knew there was something wrong about her. Something wrong about that old man. Something wrong about this place.
Why is that so creepy?
It was like Carolyn was magnetically drawn to it. Uncle Gary's family fun zone. Like it exists because she believed it. And I decided at that moment that there was some form of evil force in the world that I would never understand. And Carolyn was wrapped up in it. How was this place real? Like I said, it didn't make any sense. Nothing did. We even explored the place for a while, and it was... Christ, it feels like I'm going back there right now, and I never want to go back. Never. The musty smell, those animals that towered over us like monsters. It's just... Will, why don't we end this? No, just a little more. There's some things that you should know. I'd never seen Carolyn so excited. Still haven't. I swear she was bouncing around that place, wanting to explore every inch. To be fair, if I found something that, like, people were talking about in Legends, and I found it, I'd be kind of excited.
Even as scared as I would be, I'd be like, oh my god, this is actually happening. Just the adrenaline from it.
I like watching those, like, exploring, like, abandoned, like, amusement parks and stuff.
Yeah, that's fun.
Sorry. Anyway, she pulled me into something horrifying. A corn maze I never thought we'd get out of. And then we found it. We found the place where that kid had disappeared. Carolyn pulled open this hatch with this enormous empty ball pit, and we wiggled through this crawl space that dead-ended. Then we heard something. Something else was in the barn. We heard its footsteps above us, and it was stomping around. I thought maybe it was the old man, because who else would know we were here? Was it the old man? It wasn't. No way. We were huddled up at the end of the crawl space. My legs were shaking so bad I thought they would spring free from my body. Carolyn held them down for me. She was so calm, just calm. The hatch opened, and in the dark, so he looked. I saw this figure kind of lean down. It definitely wasn't the old man. It was too skinny. It couldn't have been a person. It just wasn't. We stared at it. I stared at it across the crawl space, and at one point I turned to look at Caroline, and she was watching this thing with a little grin on her face. And that thing kept right on looking and breathing, and then all of a sudden it sniffed the air like it was smelling us. And the voice, God, I'll never forget it. It was the voice that was deep and raspy and terrible at the same time. Not young enough. Then it slammed down the hatch and it was gone. We waited a while when we thought it was safe and ran back to our cars.
Why does this have me so on edge? Oh my gosh. Okay.
Will, if I thought we'd talk about this, I wouldn't have asked you to. I mean, I never intended it to be like this. It's fine. Someone needed to know, and I'm glad it's you. If I can ask, and if you don't want to answer, that's totally fine. Why are you with her? Why are you married to Caroline?
That's what I want to know.
Because somebody had to marry her, and it had to be me. Does that make sense? I don't know what happened at that place. I know there's evil things in this world that have grabbed hold of her, but she's better. She never wrote that article, never talked about Uncle Gary's family fun zone since then. I'm not sure if she remembers it. Maybe the evil's gone. It could be gone forever.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, behind us. This is intense.
This is crazy. I'm literally like bouncing with anxiety. More than usual.
Mm-hmm. But I'm always waiting for it to come back. And that's why I'll tell you this. But this one goes to the grave, yeah? Yeah. She wants to have kids. Carolyn wants to have a baby. But it won't be with me. I got a vasectomy years ago, back in college, actually. I won't give her a baby. Not after everything I know. But she wants one more than anything. She'll find out. If you guys do fertility, the doctors will find out. I know. What will you do then? I don't know.
She's gonna sacrifice the child.
I think that's why. He's like, I think that's why he's like, it's like I had to marry her because if she had some dope who didn't know about her, because he had like a bad feeling with her and kids. There's like a little part where he like kind of theorizes about stuff.
Oh, okay.
He says, my original hunch about my interview experiment was correct. There was just something about the microphones in tight space that I feel like it's like elicits honesty. That what I experienced with Carolyn and Will was the rarest form of honesty, and honesty I hope to never ever experience again. I want to rid myself of the entire situation. Even having the audio files is just wrong. Like I was allowing evil to fester. But then I remember what Will told me. Someone needs to know. I spent hours transcribing the interviews, dumping the text file on USB drive, and tossed it into a box in my closet. I deleted the audio files from my computer and then put my microphones and recorders out to the curb. It just wasn't worth it. But the purging didn't cure me. I was haunted by Will and Carolyn's stories, and it just wasn't the horrific situations they found themselves in as high schoolers. It was the secrets and lies they've lived ever since. Will and Carolyn came over for dinner a few weeks after the interviews. It was like nothing was wrong. We drank, we laughed. I watched Will touch the small of Carolyn's back, and Carolyn gently caressed Will's elbow. It all seemed so frighteningly normal, but I knew what they were living in, and it terrified me. The next day, the doorbell rang, and it was Carolyn. She said she left her sweater at my place and was here to pick it up. It was my first time being alone with her since the interview. I was worried she'd bring up Uncle Gary's family fun zone, or wanting to have a baby, or she'd again gently broach the topic of me and her, and what could have been, what could be. I just wasn't sure. I retrieved her sweater from the kitchen and walked her to the front door. I tried to read what was going on beneath her eyes, and I looked for a flicker of what that evil that Will said grabbed hold of her all those years ago. I didn't see it. I just saw a lonely, sad woman who wanted more out of life than she was giving. We reached the front door, and Carolyn looked over towards my living room. Tyler lay nestled in the cushions, lost inside the pages of a fantasy book. Carolyn smiled longingly at my boy and said to no one in particular, "Not young enough."
I feel all sorts of I feel like that was written so well. Because in general, if you were to summarize that story, not very creepy.
No.
But listening to the way it was told, it's like, oh, you get
That's
her
why I was like, it's
perspective,
gonna
and
be
it's like, no, she's crazy.
Yeah, that's why I was like, it's gonna be long because I can't summarize it or else it's not gonna be very creepy. The interview just makes it like, and the sides were different.
And getting her perspective and then getting his perspective and then combining that together and then having the aftermath and the connection between the beginning and that like middle section in between. Ooh, I'm telling you though, I'm like on edge of like in the video. I'm over here like.
There's a comment at the bottom, not to make my segment even longer.
No, go for it.
That says, my theory. The child that was lost in the ball pit is a red herring. Ignore it. The thing that people missed was that Will gave Carolyn the wrong directions, 40 miles away where he was, yet she appears. And to Carolyn, the directions were perfect. What if they both weren't with each other? What if they went to two different places? What if the Will that Caroline met wasn't really Will, and vice versa? Both mentioned how out of character the other was. What if they were they were with an entirely different entity the whole time? And the most disconcerting at all is what if they were with each other from a parallel universe, and that crawl space acts as a funnel to this universe?
That's kind of what I was thinking when the directions first were switched, when he was like, oh, I gave her the wrong directions. I was like, they weren't with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that obviously she could just be lying. Oh gosh. But the way that they described it so differently, but the same but different. Oh. Because realistically, why would she lie if she really assumed that he wasn't going to share the story
From her perspective, it was like a local legend. Everybody in the town knew about it. From his perspective, nobody fucking knew about it.
That's true, too.
Nobody.
That's true, too. To be fair, that could be like a delusion. Mm-hmm. You know? She thought everyone heard about it because she was so engulfed in it.
Well, he said, because he was like, we interviewed cops and historians and everything. And she said the same thing. She said, yeah, and we got stories from all of them. And he said, nobody had heard of it.
Oh, it has to be that. Oh, that comment is so good.
And then the leg shaking thing. She said, my leg was shaking and Will put my knee down. And he said, my legs were like shaking so bad I thought they were going to like fall off. And she calmed me down and she was calm. And she said it didn't talk. He heard a voice.
And, oh my gosh. And then she says it in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I know, I got goosebumps.
I really do. There were so many points in there where my eyes started watering. Oh my god, goosebumps. I'm like, ah.
Yeah, that was the one I found where I was like, I'm reading this one instead.
Yeah, that one's good. No, that was good. That was well worth it.
Sorry for the long story, but I don't know.
Oh my gosh. No, that's so good. I don't even have too much to say because I'm just so like, what? And I hope
it's
that
crazy.
And like, yeah, I literally have goosebumps. To be fair, it doesn't take a whole lot for me to get goosebumps and like my eyes water because
if you get into it and zone out into it enough, I think anything can give me the chicken skin.
I just really picture the if you were to make it a movie, like what it would look like.
Dude,
you know?
it would look really cool.
I picture the like dark smile in the dark, and that creeps me out.
I hope I differentiated
the voice.
I try to make my voice sound different. I probably
it came through to me, but
okay, cool.
I could understand it.
It kind of makes sense because someone. I mean, if I was asking a question, it was obviously the interviewer. You know.
No, it makes sense. It was well written. All right, let's move on to my next story, and it's not going to be. I don't know. I think this one's creepy if you also put yourself into it. Alrighty, so this one is also from the No Sleep Reddit. Like I said, I think all mine are. But this one's called The Minimalist. His name is Sven. It's really hard for me to say that name.
Sven.
So this is going to be interesting because it comes up a lot. So just bear with me. Sven. He's 27, blonde, and used to have a well-shaped body. We lived together for 3 years, him and me. Nights with beer, peanuts, and a good talk, and days that we barely saw each other because of our busy schedule. He's an architect, or maybe he just was. I'm not so sure. In March, he made his dreams come true. He traveled to Japan for 3 weeks. His Facebook wall was plastered with photos of temples and streets and people. But most of all, there were pictures of houses, large and small. Finally, photos of houses and apartments from the inside. Besides the ones of the pictures, to this day, stands a sentence that I think started his obsession. The people here are really nice. Tell them you're an architect and ask nicely, and any stranger will show you their house. Just make sure you take your shoes off. In his post and the 2 short phone calls we had during his time in Japan, I noticed that he seemed to have a new passion, minimalism. Simplify and declutter your life, and you will simplify and declutter your mind.
I can't do that. I got a lot of stuff.
I like items.
I like having stuff.
To be fair, I use all of my stuff. Look at how much stuff we've used here. You know, he said, they have apartments here too. Not even bigger than student rooms, but they have everything. A shower, a kitchen, everything in just one room. And you don't even notice it. The first thing Sven did when he came back was to pack most of his life. First, spare clothes, his game consoles, and his TV. And then also old gifts with random memorabilia into boxes. He placed the boxes on the sidewalk, and within an hour, they were gone. Within a week, more and more left his room. Old birthday cards, photos, trophies, even his heirloom grandfather clock. Soon, all was at the side of the street. Soon, all of it was gone. A room with a near-empty shelf, a near-empty wardrobe, a desk, and a chair. Isn't it beautiful, he asked. And I had to agree. So simple, so clean, so relaxing. No clutter, no memories, no worries. Although some of Sven's motivation jumped over to me, my room stayed a mess. You should really declutter, he said. I've never felt happier. And Sven lived a simpler day by day.
This feels like me and Cody. I'm like, you should get rid of some stuff. And he was like, no.
Make more items. It's so much more relaxed. He smiled as he said that. Simpler food. I feel so light. Simpler clothes. I don't need to choose anymore. 3 sets, rotate. Everything else is excess. No desk. It's not good for your back anyways. No shelf. It just collects dust. No bed sheets. Your body learns to face the cold. No mattress. Soft is bad for your spine. No bed.
What?
It's so much easier.
What?
Oh, I said, but where do you sleep? The floor is enough. He smiled again. Relaxed, calm, and sincere, and possibly happy. And what do you do when it gets cold? He grinned. No problem. I still have the wardrobe. In early August, he moved into the wardrobe.
What the fuck?
And since then, I've never seen him anywhere else. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. Not the kitchen, not the bathroom. During the days, he keeps his wardrobe open, and at night, he closes it.
So you're saying he's in the closet?
He's in the closet. You should really join me, he says. There's lots of space here.
What the fuck?
I don't think so. Oh, Sven said. You're just too attached to things. I said goodbye to the Sven I knew on the 12th of August, the day he shaved his head.
Oh.
By that day, he was already thin, far too thin to be healthy. Sometimes I brought him food. No, he would say, I'm not hungry. He was never hungry, and you could see it when he was sitting sideways in his wardrobe, and the only things that gave a shape to his body were his ribs and bones that nearly seemed to penetrate the skin. But he always smiled. You really need help, I said. And he smiled with teeth of which the gums were slowly retreating. Don't worry about me. I'm much better this way. Much better than ever before. Dude, this is not healthy. Much healthier than you live, he said. You should really join me in here. There's space for 2. There's no space, I said. I really shouldn't have said that. Sven installed a board in the wardrobe right above his head.
What?
You can have the top bunk, he said. I thought that was a joke.
No. This is Narnia in that fucking wardrobe. I ain't going
Mary
in
Poppins
there.
bag. And every day the top bunk seemed to grow as his space seemed to shrink. But he fit. He always sat there, quietly. Sometimes with a book he borrowed from me, and other times just with his mind. It was September then. Really, he said, you can have the top bunk. You will definitely fit. I'm not so sure about that. Oh, I'll make a bit more space. Tomorrow, you'll definitely fit. And the next day, as a joke, I sat on his top bunk. He closed the door.
No.
There was just my heartbeat and his breath. Isn't it serene? He asked. A bit too tight for me, I said, and something smells. Back then, I would have said it smelled like nails. That'll go, he said. By the next day, the top bunk was even bigger. His space was by then just a thin shelf, maybe as high as 5 or 6 books stacked on top of each other.
Oh my god.
The smell got worse.
Ugh.
Rot.
Ugh.
Don't worry, he said. It will get better. Sven, I said, I think you're dying. And he laughed. You cling too much to your body, he said. No, really, you need to go to the hospital. I'm not crazy. Don't start that debate again. Give me your parents' number. No. For the first time, he looked angry. Please, I just want to help. No, he said. I'm perfectly fine. I smell your body rotting.
Ugh.
He laughed. Don't worry. That's just the healing process. Healing? The wounds, he said. What wounds? Nothing major. Nothing I needed. Show me. No. Show me. I grabbed his right hand. It was bony, small, and cold. "Stop it," he said, but I pulled. He felt lighter than my bag was on most days. His fingernails dug into my arm. "Stop it," he screamed. His whole body slid from the shelf. Just no left arm. And no legs. I let go. He screamed. And with one push, he was back in his shelf. "You're crazy," I said. "No," he said. "You are. You don't need all of these things for happiness." I walked backward to the door. "What did you do with your legs?" "Didn't need them," he said. "Cut them off 2 weeks ago."
You fucking eat them? What did he do?
"My God, you will die." His eyes looked soft again, and he smiled. "Simplify," he said. "Then you will stop worrying about such things." Probably I should have called the ambulance or the police or somebody, anybody. I just didn't, because every time I did, I looked at him and he smiles. He is happy. Happier than anyone I've ever seen.
Ho! What are you doing?
It's been 4 days now. Sven is still there, happy. Sometimes I hear him hum or sing. Otherwise, he just sits there quietly smiling. And I should be terrified, disgusted, horrified. Instead, I feel serene when I look at him. When I feel stressed or worried, I look at him and feel calm from his smile.
What the fuck?
Without even thinking about it, I begun tidying my room. Sven is right in some respects, certainly. Decluttering calms me down. The first 2 boxes were on the street today.
No.
And by night, just before I go to sleep, I wonder what it would feel like to be with him. In there. In his wardrobe bunk bed. And when I close my eyes, the darkness seems to fill with a memory. I hear nothing but a heartbeat and his breath. And I remember how happy I felt in there. Did you hear that over there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that was that. That was minimalism.
Jesus Christ.
I thought that was like... when I was reading that the first time, I had no idea where that was going.
I didn't know where that was going. I thought he was just going to be like... I thought she was going to be like, I opened the...
That was me.
Okay. Sorry, you got me. I'm paranoid. We had a lot of noises tonight. I thought she was going to be like, I opened the wardrobe. And he was gone.
He was gone. No, I thought it was going to be like some sort of cult thing, you know, like, oh, he came back different. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, the whole humans are scarier than ghosts. I love it. Ugh. Just imagine just like, imagine laying in a... First off, imagine laying like in a closet with somebody.
I know.
And then you pull them out and they're missing their arm and their legs. They're just a torso and an arm. And what you realize you've been smelling is literally their decaying body from their limbs. And like...
So gross.
And they're just there like...
That's gross. Where did he put them? Where did he put the legs and the arm? I just want to know. I want to know which one he did first. He did the legs first?
I want to know how he did it. Like, what did he do it with?
And how did he not make a mess?
I don't know. All right. Well, this has already been quite the long episode. I have one more tiny one. That was actually just a comment left by somebody on a different post. I actually started telling you about this post. The initial post earlier was about...
I'm not allowed to do other stories. They're too long.
But the initial post was about a clown at a birthday party who was doing the handkerchief, you know, gag where they like pulling endless whatever, and it got creepier. They're like pulled out underwear, or they pulled out like child's underwear, and then it was like weird, and they started pulling out like their intestines and such. I would read that, but it was a little bit lengthy considering that was basically all that happened. It was really like a lot of imagery was happening in that. But somebody responded to that saying, I donate plasma. So this is supposedly real. I donate plasma, and one time I apparently clotted pretty bad. And after they had enough trouble with that, I was sent home without really donating that day. And once the wound had dried up to remove enough of the gauze, I saw a crust of blood on my arm. It happens, no big deal. So I scratch it off. It's stuck. So I pull, expecting to have to put gauze back on it for a while because of a scab being pulled off. Nope, 4 inches of clot came out of the vein. Terrified me. first thought, my first thought when I got about 3 inches was that I was pulling out the vein itself. But at 4 inches, it slid right out, and I felt the tingle of blood returning to the arm. Could have been bad. Might still be. But I haven't had a stroke yet. That was 3 years ago, so I'm probably fine. That one, like...
No.
Just the thought of just like imagine just...
Pulling that out of your arm.
So that was Scary Stories. I hope you enjoyed. I did. Now we get to pack up in this very scary building, which to be fair, since I've worked here long enough, I no longer really get super scared, but tonight has been different.
Because we've been talking about
It's because we've been talking about spooky stories. Although, that sound we heard was not because we were listening to spooky stories.
Yeah, no.
That happened.
That was, and that happened while I was reading about I heard the thump above me. Like, yeah. I was reading over the Reddit story, so I'd read it right. And it was like, I heard the thunk, and then it was boom. And I was like, oh my God, it's real.
But it wasn't just like I've heard what I would say would be footsteps. But this was not footsteps. This was like something fell and was just drug. Like we have the only thing we could think of is like we have chairs up there, and it almost sounded like something was
like pulling
a chair across the floor. I don't know. I did feel it in the floorboards.
We didn't even say anything to each other. I heard the tail end of it, and I just looked at Anyssa to see if she heard something, and she was already looking at me, and she was like,
yeah, because you only heard. I heard because I was sitting at this camera, and I was getting it set up, and I just like slowly look up like, oh.
I only heard the tail end of it because I had the headphones on. I was listening to myself
Yeah, and then.
But the fact that I could hear it through these headphones and myself,
I was paralyzed. That was insane.
I can't imagine how loud it was.
I'm literally gonna go look on the camera footage just to see if something crazy happened. I doubt we'll see anything, but like if we did, oh my God, I don't know. All right, well, like I said, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me.
I have a birthday.
If you made it this far, that's pretty awesome. I don't know. Usually I find something a little funny to say at the end, and I don't have anything funny to say. I'm too spooked.
It's too spooky.
If you did enjoy, I hope to do some more of these type of episodes soon. I want to do true like creepypasta episodes where we talk about like the classics, Mm-hmm. But those tend to be a little bit more in depth and involved. So we'll have to do more research, and I don't want to have to break them up. I want to be able to do one episode where we focus on one or two, and whatnot. So be sure to follow and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok. I'm on the TikToks. Hammond and Anyssa. It's backwards on TikTok. I don't know. I'm cool like that. Follow us on Spotify. Anyssa Chats on Spotify. And no one's following us on Spotify, so feel the guilt. Go follow me on Spotify. I think that's it. Anything else to say?
A hungry.
Me too. Let's go get food.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.